Hello there, this is Ron Wills, and I'm back at you again with yet another video. Today, I'm going to talk about many women searching for the perfect man. You know, a lot of fellas, and just to be clear before I go any further, this is something that pertains to all groups, all races. I'm going to say that from the get-go. Reason why I know a lot of my videos deal with black male female relationship issues, but this is universal. This is universal, at least universal in first world westernized countries. And the thing is, a lot of fellas don't realize that they think they're competing. A lot of good men, especially, they think they're competing with, a thug or a lowlife or a loser. And in many cases, you are. But these men are also competing with the perfect man. See, there's a phenomenon, and it's kind of complicated how this came about, but it's just a reality. Many women out here with their checklist and what they want are looking for that perfect guy, that perfect man. That man who, he's tall, handsome, muscular. He has business savvy, he's rich, and he's also sensitive and, monogamous. I'm gonna try to not to bust out laughing with that last one. Anyway, okay, I had to let that one out. And it sounds crazy to any right thinking person. It even sounds crazy to a lot of women. But on a deep level, many women think they're gonna find this. And I'm gonna be straight up with you. This isn't something I'm coming off the top of my head with, and I'm just saying. This has been observed. There's a very good book I'm gonna recommend, and I'm gonna put a link to it in the description box. It's called Smart Women, Foolish Choices by two clinical psychologists, Dr. Connell Cohen and Dr. Melvin Kinder. There are over 1 million copies of this book in print, which was first published back in 1986. And this is a book, I recommend this book to any man and woman who wants to get an idea about it, relationships and what's going on. Now, somebody like me, I'm just a social commentator. I'm an observer. I observed a lot, and I would say it's accurate. But this is deeper. These are psychologists. These dudes actually had case studies. They were actually talking with people and finding out what's going on. And, in their book, Smart Women, Foolish Choices, they start off saying women are looking for the perfect man. Now, let me read this little excerpt. And keep in mind, I'm going to mention some celebrities' names from the 80s. So if somebody's listening and they hadn't heard these names before, look, it's 80s. Anybody who may be, late 40s and up, they might recognize it. So here's what they say. Here's an excerpt from Smart Women, Foolish Choices. The man I'm looking for? Well, he's got Richard Gere's body, Dustin Hoffman's grin, Lee Iacocca's business savvy, Robert Redford's charm, and Pat Boone's commitment to family. Oh yes, most important of all, he'll tell me within the first hour that I'm the woman he's been looking for all his life. Sounds extreme? Not to us. We find so many smart women today are searching for the perfect man, a sort of super prince. Of course, they know rationally that he doesn't exist, yet often lurking beneath this intellectual understanding is the unspoken but persistent belief that somewhere, somehow, they will find him. Boom. Many men are competing against that phantom. Because what happens is women, they have that checklist, they have that fantasy man, that ideal man who they believe will solve all their problems with this list. One thing I like to point out, I've actually challenged women on this, and I say, have you actually met that man that you have on your list that you're looking for? And I've yet to have a woman tell me, yes, they have met that man, one, unless they trying to be contrary or lying. But I've never had a woman honestly tell me that. Two, they don't know if they would even like that man if they met him, because relationships are dynamic. This is realism. So that's one consideration right there. Now, this book was published back in '86. I didn't get it back then, but it's got it. I think a few years ago, and I got this thing underlined like the Bible. But one thing I wanted to add to the story, like back in 1995, I wrote a short story. And it's ironic, this short story kind of got me into the relationship field accidentally. It was called The Perfect Man. And in the story, there was this man who was dealing with two different women, and his personality with each was different. He was presenting himself as the perfect man. And, it was a short story, and I wrote it really just to learn the mechanics of the publishing industry, which is a lot different back then than it is now. I mean, they didn't have, print on demand, and, they didn't have the same resources, which makes it easier. So back then, they had to use printing plates and all of that stuff. And you had to pay a lot of money just to get it printed. And, it was basically in a pamphlet form, right? It was just a short story. But the fun, and I sold the short story, but that's when I started noticing some women were buying it like crazy. I mean, they were buying that thing like crack. I was like, oh, what's the drug name? I don't even know what the drug is now. Meth. They were buying that joint like meth. And I was like, wow, what is it? And women were coming back to me. They were like, dang, this really made me look at myself. And, the whole premise of the story was these women were caught up so much in this man's image that he represented the perfect man to them that they didn't really try to get to know what he was really about. And, and they weren't like totally at fault because, in any of my fiction, I don't make the characters perfect. So, part of it was his own growth because he felt the need to put on this mask. But it really illustrated a bigger thing. A lot of women don't really, because they searching for the perfect man, which no man can measure up to. I mean, no man can measure up to that. I mean, everybody, I don't care who they are, what they got going for them, they got something with them that's going to be undesirable to even a person that may feel like they love them. And that's cool, because we all here to grow. But a lot of women, they'll have a decent guy. Or they'll encounter decent guys, but because that man is not measuring up to that ideal that they have in their minds, they don't want to deal with him. You actually have women who feel like no matter what they look like, that they can get that rich man. That rich, handsome man. In fact, that's the whole romance book industry. That's that whole 50 Shades of whatever thing going on. That perfect guy, that billionaire, the handsome billionaire who, though he has some interesting sexual practices, falls for the plain Jane. That's the perfect man for many women. Or whatever it could be. It could be that guy who's the church going guy who's like super handsome and he ignores all women for that one. Okay, y'all, look, I'm gonna give y'all a little thing. It's hard for me to keep a straight face when I talk about a man who got all this stuff going on and he's going to be monogamous. I'm sorry. It's hard for me to say that straight. Just to let you know, if I try to say it later on, I bust out laughing. Y'all know why? Because I get that the concept. I can't get with it. But anyway, you have so many women looking for that, and one of the things I talk about in my writing is the masked man. Now, for the most part, I describe that masked man as somebody who, has a lot of money and stuff, has a good financial thing, and even in some cases, I might prefer to refer to him as a money man or even a successful man. But that real mask is he's putting on the mask that a woman wants to see. They have the list. They publish all these lists in these magazines and all of that, books. Or just in conversation, they'll say what they want. Some men figure out how to do that. They get the means to actually put on that mask and be perfect enough, at least to get pussy for a little bit, because that's what it come down to. Men wearing that mask, they ain't really trying to find a wife or anything. That's why a lot of times a lot of masked men, a lot of successful men, are non-committal, because they know once you get past that mask, once the woman realizes that dude don't make that like unrealistic checklist, he ain't gonna pass muster. And talking about that unrealistic thing, that's real. Women don't realize, but that inner desire for chasing the perfect man, which in Smart Women's Foolish Choices, the writers made a point that really is deep. That's going back to childhood. That's is not just childhood. It could be an absent father or a father who's in the home, but he's not attentive to the daughter. It goes back to the media programming. If you look at these movies, like I'm gonna call Disney. What they gonna do? I'm gonna call them out on it. What do you see? All these princesses, like no matter what, they get the handsome guy. Disney has become a $1 billion powerhouse based on that. Don't think for 1 second it has anything to do with that rat. It has to do with tapping into a woman's desire for that prince. And these women grow up thinking that. They grow up thinking that. Even when they deal with bad boys or thugs or whatever, it's still that prince thing. Like, that whole fantasy of this dude is evil to everybody else, but there's something so special about her that he'll just change up. That's a pure fantasy. A bad boy is just that, bad. And at some point, once she gets out of that romantic intoxication, once the blinders come off, the rose-colored glasses come off, she see that dude was no good. And then, she up there wondering, well, how she get involved with him? And, you looking at her like, that's because you weren't looking at him. You saw what you wanted to see. You saw a fantasy instead of the reality. He didn't hide anything from you. And it's that if you look at, like I said, just look at the media. Look what the programming is out there. Look what women tell other women. Like, you have a situation where a woman might have a good guy. She'll have a good guy, but then she got her meddling girlfriends talking about, oh, you can do better. And they know that girl can't do better. But they believe that. Deep down they know. But they following that fantasy. Never mind that, the woman probably rate about a 4 on a scale of 1 to 10. And she got some personality issues that she really need to deal with. But, the women, her friends and stuff, they're going to enforce that fantasy that she's going to find that handsome, tall, rich guy who's going to, put up with her bullshit. No, that's a fantasy. That's that whole thing with finding the perfect man. And see, here's another issue with many women searching for a perfect man. Relationships are about growth. If a man is already perfect, he has no place to go. Every single person is a work in progress. And does a woman realistically want to deal with that? She think it is, but at some point, I guarantee it, if he's too perfect, she gonna get bored. And here's another thing when I talk about that growth thing. If that dude is, say hypothetically, they meet that perfect guy. Thing is, she's still growing too. And she might grow to the point where what was perfect for her, in January is no longer perfect for her in December. So there you go. Now, like I said, this whole searching for that perfect man, it really, first of all, for the men's side, men are competing against a phantom. You can't compete against image. You can't really compete. You can just do your thing, and a lot of times that's what a woman is comparing a man to, is that perfect image she has, that ideal that she's never met. And I used to think otherwise, but one of the things I always say with myself is I'm a work in progress too. Because I used to sincerely believe men were just compared to other men, but the more wisdom I get, I realize men are compared. Many men are just compared to something that really doesn't exist. And I mean, this is deep. You even see it in like a lot of women who get caught up into say the Christian church. There's a lot of women out there. They'll say, "Well, their man is Jesus," and of course, Jesus, being the Son of God, he was perfect. And it was like a man trying to compete with that. It was like, well, hold up, I can't compete with that. I can't walk on water. I mean, even Rom, even me. I mean, I could turn some, water into wine, but I haven't mastered walking on water yet. So I mean, dang. But many men got to come do that though. They have to compete with that perfect guy, that abstract. And the men, that's the men's side. The women, it really hurts the women because first of all, a man who can figure out enough of what a woman considers perfect, or at least enough of her checklist, and he put on that mask, he can have his way with it, walk off. Women really get, that's one of the biggest reasons why women get dogged, because they looking for an abstract instead of dealing with the reality. And then really it is deep. One thing I want to leave, and especially I got some women listeners of one here. One thing I've seen in life, the women who win in relationships are the ones who do not harbor those romantic notions. They pragmatic. These are usually women who grew up in poor areas. They realize, hey, you know what, it's about eating every day. Women who grew up in poor areas, women who grew up, maybe in the hoods or something, whether it be at a housing project or trailer park or unfortunately the res for Native American groups, they gotta be practical. They can't be on that look for the prince. Shoot, they just looking for that dude trying to work hard, trying to get up out of there or something. They realize he ain't perfect, but his ass working. And that's one thing I've seen. They pragmatic. They ain't talking about, oh, you gotta have all these flowers and shit. They say, motherfucker, you working? You got a job? You got a steady job? That shit got benefits? You don't have to be rich, just be working. And they realize it's about intention, just dealing with someone realistically. So, anyway, that's it for today. Want to give y'all a little something. Anyway, I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.